Hello, welcome to the Square Base Show. I'm your host, Rob, and I'm joined by my co-host and manager, Val Heffelfinger. In today's show, we're going to be talking about how to build the perfect doubles pack.
Woo! Dub it up, brother.
Dub it up. That's
dub.
Dub it dub. So hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us live. Please do leave comments, like, and subscribe. Because not enough of you do, I've realized. Although we are now at 13,000 subscribers, so we're legit.
Wow.
We're legit. We're scathing.
That's almost. We're getting close to the full capture of Old World. We're gonna have to start like turning this into a full-on pyramid scheme. Like you have to bring other people in. That way, that so we just keep building it up.
Yeah.
If every subscriber just gets 2 subscribers, then we'll have however many more subscribers that would be.
We're actually going to start selling leggings like Lululemon, so watch out for the Lululemon crossover with Square Based in the future. But moving away from unsubstantiated pyramid schemes.
Because I mean, yoga pants. They're comfortable to wear, and they're just wonderful to be in the world. Why are we hating on Lululemon, a proud Canadian enterprise?
Isn't Lululemon the one that's a pyramid scheme and they're in like literally in loads and loads of trouble? There was a documentary on Netflix.
Oh boy, eh? I just read the last controversy I remember of theirs was that they like changed their supplier and their very attractive butt pants were transparent and you can see everyone's butt.
Yeah, that was a thing, but also there's just a hot. Well, listen, we'll watch the documentary together. We'll do a live stream. Everyone will enjoy
Lululemon hot takes here on the on Square Bass.
It's what you tuned in for. So hello everyone. Here for. Hello everyone. How's everyone doing? Val. Yes. Now I know you've had a busy week at home with the kiddos, 2 young kids. But have you been keeping your eye to the prize on the Old World? Have you had any time to get anything done? You have an adorable story about your son starting to get involved, right?
Well, thanks for the prompt. No, yeah. Johnny has been JVP, as JVP. I've almost exclusively referred to him as. That's a big whoopsie. Anyway, JVP. He loves to go into, I don't know if anyone knows, but where I record is like a little, like a finished garage, kind of, behind my house. I call it La Casita, which means small house in Spanish.
Cute.
And so JVP will often be like, Dad, I'm going to go out to the casita and set up a game for you. And I'll be like, okay, just be very, very careful. And then he is very careful. Kid's like 3 and a bit. He's almost 4. And he will very carefully pull out all of my terrain and set it up on the table. And then he does like little dioramas, little vignettes, little scenes with the little dudes. And it's really adorable and cute. And he's so careful with the stuff. I don't think he's broken a model.
That's adorable. I feel like it's within our wheelhouse to, in the next few years, write a slightly simpler rule set for armies, so that dads can play with their young kids. I think that would be fun. That'd be a cutie thing to do.
It is a cute. There's also 1-page rules. I wonder how simple that actually is. I've never actually read one-page rules. I have no idea if it has. Some people seem very, very happy with it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like you could do something with a lot of drawings and stuff. I think that would be sweet, especially because I'm sure lots of people are watching. Dads, mums, MBs of young children, and I'm sure that they'd love to play Old World with their kids. I think that'd be fun. Should be something we do.
What's kind of interesting is how, like, I don't know about you, but like growing up, like there was this almost invisible transition from like play into like structured gaming. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, when I think back to when I first originally played Warhammer and stuff, like 12, 13, something like that, or like even Magic the Gathering, but like unless there was an older kid there, you were just kind of like fumbling around like with all things in the dark. And like, some of it was actual rules. A lot of it was what you made up. It's kind of like the original AOS. Maybe that's what we should play with that. But it really was sort of the idea of like, you sort of just made up a lot of it, and then eventually it becomes very structured and like grown up with all the proper rules and shit. But like, I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but it would just seem like an almost seamless transition over that. So we almost just start with what's going on right here, which is just literally playing toy soldiers, right?
I legitimately think you just have like a move stat, an attack stat, a defense stat, and then you just make it that simple. You just That's all you got to do. You just roll a couple of dice, and you don't have to roll a lot of dice either. I think that could be something that we organise in the future. That sounds really fun. Yeah, really simple.
Sounds like War Master.
I've never played that.
It's just epic. It's epic fantasy. So like epic 40K but fantasy, and by the way, anyone who thinks that was an insult to War Master is genuinely not intended to be. But the rule set is a lot more succinct, and like you have like basically the whole unit has a stat line. The stat lines are almost all the same. I think there's 4 or 5 maybe different stats on each unit. And so it's less about the complexity of the rules and more about how the game plays on the table. Easy to learn, hard to master, whatever that thing is.
Yeah, the classic line. Okay, so have you been looking at, have you got the GT? Oh, because you've got Thingy coming up, haven't you?
So there's a couple of things. One, Capital City Bloodbath, one for sale. Want to double back to that. 2, it should be, by the time this is up, there will have been a announcement video that will go up or is up. And a sign-up sheet. If you're on Patreon or if you're in the Discord, you'll see basically there'll be like a Google sheet that you can sign up for the Square-based online tournament, SBOT. Huh?
Woo.
How's that? I'm just trying. I'm trying out an acronym.
Okay.
SBOT.
SBOT. Okay.
We can workshop it. Rob's mad at me twice now for. So that will be going on. We're looking. So basically, we'll have 2 weeks. If you want, you got about 2 weeks to sign up, and then we'll be into the exhibition period, which will start on or around the week of June 1st. And then we'll be off to the races. About a 6 round. It'll be just a 6-round tournament at the most. It'll end by the first weekend of August. The pace is going to be pretty quick. We're going to be looking to do a game a week, and we'll see who can keep up. In exchange for that, you'll have access to lots of fun prizes, the potential of playing me or Rob. Maybe, I don't know if Rob's got.
I mean,
you think you can do it?
I'm in.
Hell yeah. So also Hugo. There'll be lots of interesting people, and also our patrons, obviously. So yeah, if you're interested, it'll be a Patreon only. Winner gets at the minimum a free year of warhol.eu. And we're also going to gin up some awesome Square-based swag to send to the winner, and probably some of the finishers as well. I'm hoping to send at least something. I'm hoping everyone who actually completes the event, I want everyone who completes it, gets all their games done, to get something. So I'm going to figure out what that is.
Yeah. Okay. That's fun. I like that. I'm really excited about that, mainly because I'm going to get to try out at least one army list that's different to like the one that I am very slowly and ponderously painting, which is kind of where I've been at the minute with all the other projects I have going on. Like the one thing, painting is effectively my side project. Not even a side project. Yeah. It's my fun time, if you know what I mean. And so it's had to take I'm getting there. Like it's slowly but surely. I started working. I put some big block colors on my demon prints.
There he is,
which is fun.
Oh, also, so sweet, dude.
Also, some big block colors again on my level 4 and demonic mount. So I'm working.
Hold on a second.
Yeah,
blocking in colors.
Yeah.
What's going on, Rob?
Yes, I'm. So, what Val is alluding to, if you are a Square-based fan and you are not much into the painting sphere, most people don't know this about me, but I'm actually one of the world's most famous and influential painters. So,
genuinely one of the biggest hobby influencers that's ever existed. Yeah. You started an entire movement.
Yeah. I'm like a cult leader who then left. Yeah. Which I think is the only true way to do a cult. So as a man of mystery, I left, and I'm not slap chopping these miniatures, and instead I am slap chop plusing. And then doing a bit of slopping, which
you're sham wowing them.
Yeah, I'm sham wowing them. Is the slopping. Effectively, what this means is I'm going to just like with this blue as an example, I'll just dry brush the blue with a white, and then I'll use a contrast paint over the top. So it kind of gives you like a slightly like more solid color, but it does the same as doing a wash, but it means you don't have to do any edge highlights, if that makes sense. So and then it gives you a nice gradient. So I got to find the right contrast for that to go over the top. I think that'd be really fun. Maybe athematic blue, and then
it's wild how process. Taking a white dry brush to just about anything. Like if you just have a pretty basic bitch paint job, even if you do slap chop, even if you do the white dry brush after the slap chop, it still fucking works. It's hilarious. Turns out that's what edge highlighting is like a really fine white edge highlight. I didn't know that.
It's effectively all it is. So yeah, but then I'm also going to be using some streaking grime in the metal, which has also been so I'm excited about that. So I'm hoping they look great. I'm getting there. I did also put a bunch of Marauder Cav. They're on pre-order this week from Games Workshop, because this is my one Games Workshop official army, where all of the miniatures are from Games Workshop. So then in the future, like, I mean, I've got a dwarf army. I've already talked to you about an ogre army, which I'm probably producing soon.
Yes, they're official, but they're not the models they want you to use. So you're still being a bit of a jerk, which is great.
Yeah, exactly. But like, yeah, so this is gonna be my one official army. So I've got the Marauder Cav, so the Dark Oath stuff for Age of Sigmar. The Marauder Cav are on pre-order soon, and they look spicy as hell. So yeah, and because I do live next to Warhammer World, this is kind of like a Nottingham-based problem where you always, even though I own a gaming venue, everyone's always like, you know, I need that one Games Workshop legal army. You just don't need that anywhere else, right?
Well, I mean, some places genuinely their scene is in a local GW, which is tragic to me. Here we have one GW, but I don't know how much they encourage playing so much. Anyway, yeah, that's all really good, Rob. I'm so happy that you've had some time to at least like get some colors on some models. I know that's been gnawing at you that you haven't been able to get your army painted. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's been pretty tragic. In fact, like, so I got at Club Night this week. I had someone was like,
Club Night's back.
Club Night's been back for a while. It's pretty nice.
Okay.
And so I would like that. Someone was like, "Do you want to play a game on Thursday?" I was like, "Yeah, let's go." But because I literally have this one Warriors of Chaos list, and I'm just like, I'll play nothing else until this is painted. Like, I'm not going to 3D print the Ogre Army, which I could have done for Thursday, and then put it on the table. I'm not doing it. So my point is, Warhol to me looks like a good...
wow, you're a pro. Yeah, that's like, right. We were talking about the Warhol tournament. Yes.
So that at least is going to, I'm hoping, scratch that itch so I don't just cavalierly put a few armies down.
And also will help you perhaps avoid I know at the beginning it was a bit gut-wrenching when you discovered that, Warriors of Chaos weren't what you thought they were. But then there's the flip side of then and by not Warriors of Chaos is in the book, by the way, Warriors of Chaos isn't specifically Warriors of Chaos.
Yeah, the unit.
But then you were like, no, I got to make these work, which is also a thing in itself. And like you started running the very much like the minimum units with corn, with the Mark of Corn and stuff. Like you were finding ways to like just make them useful. And you'd maybe lose that when you can just iterate infinitely, right?
Yeah, potentially. Right? Yeah, I think so. Like, well, what you actually do is don't end up with a box of. A good example would be I have built. Now, a lot of people out there be like, all right, Rob, calm down. But I challenge all of you. I've built the best Marauders unit you've ever seen. It's made up out of like 4 different Warcry kits. Scions of the Flame, as far as I'm aware, were like internationally not available. I was like using people online. They were like, Rob, I've got one in my local store in like Denmark. And I'm like, get it in a box, send it to me, right? So I was like putting this together, and I've built what I thought. I have the Warcry kit for Scions of the Flame is so good. And do you know what? And I'm going to shout out about Old World again. Old World is so fantastically visceral. Like, when you build a Lord or a BSB or, a Captain or a Wizard in the Old World, it really feels like you're building a model that has a rule set, like light armor, some sort of magic staff. It really feels... I've been talking about this Age of Sigmar a lot recently because all the new 4th edition stuff's coming out. I play Spearhead at the weekend, and it just really feels like a board game. It doesn't feel like... I was using, the new Stormcast models, if you've seen them. New Stormcast models have got these absolutely sick shields, right? With this incredible axe. Or actually, better than that...
All of those models look amazing.
Yeah, the guy with the giant axe, who's kind of like the poster guy of the front cover, and he's like the artwork front cover guy. He has this insane big axe, and his backstory is that Stormcast, if you don't know, and I know sometimes Old World people don't like it, but I'll just give you the backstory. What happens is when they die... they are sent back to be reforged, but they lose a piece of their like brain and soul and kind of personality, and then they keep going back and forward, snip, snap, snip, snap. And then eventually they lose like most of who and what they were. There's been this ongoing narrative for 10 years. That what happens at the end of this cycle? Are they going to turn to chaos? Are they going to become like hulking berserkers?
Are they like more like Jack Nicholson at the end of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yes.
one of the larger Stormcast just picks him up and rescues the like Stormcast. Yeah, all right.
So
that's lobotomized, by the way, guys,
yeah.
Not anything else.
Well, so then we find out in this like launch box and in this story that there is a solution to this. That these kind of like aging but not aging, like degrading like souls and minds. They have
that. By the way, I kind of love the idea of like a person as a copy of 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 a copy, which degrades, which used to happen in the non-digital world. Everyone. But anyway, sorry, continuing. Yes?
No, I really like that as well. I think that's super fun.
So what's the solution?
The solution is the launch box guy is a guy with a giant axe, right? And what he does is he murders them. He's like, it's time to put you out your misery. It's the end.
No.
Death, right? But my point is, he's also, if you go and look at the model, he's like decked in armor. He has this like heroically massive axe, biggest thing you've ever seen, and he like has this the tantamount, like the backstory is insane, right? He is like he's the one who knocks sort of situation, but the rules for him are legitimately like once per battle he can make a unit have +1 to hit. That's his rule.
Wouldn't he be +1 to hit if he's chopping off dudes' heads?
It's so crap, man. Like it's so crap, and I'm glad I'm on the old world show where I can talk about it, because that's what the old world, and that's what I'm talking about. My Marauder unit is that's why it's so good. The reason it's so excellent is that when I built my Marauder unit. They felt very visceral in a way that I think now from Games Workshop only the old world does. Necromunda probably as well. And so I got to say that like I'm so glad old world is here, because it's kind of reminding me of like how a war game feels, how building a single miniature to be a hero feels. Because I think that's really being lost in 40K and Age of Sigmar. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, and again, as someone who was on the other side of that fence for so long and like really enjoyed the evolution. So basically, you had fantasy goes away, AOS comes in, and it's obviously a massive change from fantasy and established, I think, some fundamentals that still exist. Am I correct in AOS? Like AOS 1 is very much related to wherever we are now, right? Like there are still some fundamental elements.
Actually, Age of Sigmar 4, like they've weaved in the world that was very intrinsically to the backstory.
Well, I'm speaking more. But I love that element. But I'm talking more just like game design wise. Like again, in that like the
tapestry of the old world,
big time pruning down of mechanics. And all I was going to say is that in 40K, 7th edition 40K coming into 8th edition 40K, they also did that. They pruned down the mechanics, tried to make it simpler. And that is evolved all the way now to 10th edition 40K. And you use the word board game like. And that is kind of fascinating to me. And we've been touching on this a lot about like old world versus other games. And this is, by the way, in no means meant to be snobbery. I stopped playing 40K because I didn't enjoy myself. And I couldn't say a nice word anytime it came up. And that means I'm shitting on something that people really, really enjoy and love. And I hated that. And that's why I don't play 40K. I moved on. I encourage everyone who's upset about something like that to move on with their life. It's nicer for everybody. But I guess my point is like trying to find like that. What is that thing that's so different that maybe is like when you have something like Old World, which is like a rebirth of the game that we remembered, versus how the core games are evolving on the GW side. There is a definite there's definitely benefits to the way that the games have evolved on the 40K OS side, but there's just something so satisfying about the way that, and maybe it's even just that role play experience almost of like you said, the creation of tactile. A very unique and special thing, right down to the fact that like in 40K and AOS now, like you buy your units in the box sizes, right? Like this is normal for AOS, but it came in with 10th edition for 40K in a big way. which is like if you buy like your unit is available, let's say in a box that comes with 10 dudes. So your unit can usually be 10 or 20 dudes. That's your option, right? And that to me, just like, again, like you're right. Like it's almost, it's like you have some degree of control and choice, but for the most part, like those decisions are made for you. It does take something away when you don't get to make your amazing unit of Marauders, which I've again prevented you from explaining. So what is your amazing unit of Marauders?
I know. No, you hit on a point, and maybe this is my place to air it, because I haven't really felt I could air it on the Age of Sigmar shows, as I've seen all the new rules for Age of Sigmar 4, and maybe it's because of the counterpoint of the old world releasing only like 5 months ago. You know, I'm asking I know it seems crazy, right? Like I'm like, why does it feel that much more visceral, tactile? I don't know what the wordage for it is, but it honestly feels like I'm building something that, like, even I know it's going to sound really silly, but like the banner on like my units, I'm like, oh, that's an important banner, and it could be a magical banner. And there's just a lot, like, maybe it's the RPG elements, because, you know, for a while and for many times they were called tabletop RPGs. Like, you know, war games is another idea, board games is another concept. And I guess the real question you got to ask yourself is, what do you want to play? I love the Age of Sigmar setting, I love the minis, and I do enjoy the game system. Like, I really do. I like loads of elements about it. I think it'd be really tactical. And I think, you know, if you've played the old world, if you're watching this and you've ever got into that situation where 2 or 3 units are fighting against each other at the same time, and then someone, you know, fails a break check, and you're like, what happens? And both of you look at each other and be like, actually, I don't fucking know, man. Like, there's a bit of scenery in the way. Maybe there's a vortex. Everyone just wants to go home at that point. Yeah. So, like,
buy you a beer?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and things can break down. But what's so strange, and again, after being so hardcore for so long, and by the way, I'm sure like there are bottoms to all of these things, and yes, it is possible to know what to do at the end of a combat. I'm sure there's lots of people who've mastered it by now. But like, there's also just the element of the game plays. Like, Rob is now TO'd 6 events,
5 events, and that's what today's show is going to be.
How many irreconcilable differences have you even encountered in those events?
There's been we had this real in-depth conversation about leadership and inspiring presence at the last event,
hilarious. Yes,
which I think was quite a good chat, like, to do with High Elf, the High Elf noble deed, and inspiring presence generally, and how that interacted. And then Warband and leadership of Warband also kind of came into this conversation as well. There was like a couple of different elements. Effectively, I might as well explain it. If you debuff the characteristic of a unit, but then I use the inspiring presence of my general, is the debuff still apply? And I ruled that no, it doesn't, specifically because, well, and we went through this, we were really back and forth, and I think I'm on the money with this, because it says that you use their leadership characteristic, you don't use but you don't use yours. Right, and it's your leadership characteristic that gets debuffed, right? And I definitely feel that that's a conversation that could go either way. But at that,
I'm smiling right now because I don't know. I don't think I'm crazy about this. This was an unanswered question from 8th edition. Like, and it would also, I remember my brain aching in previous edition of Fantasy, like not feeling confident whether or not inspiring presence worked. So it's just a funny carry on. Like, I mean, you've got to make a rule. But I guess the point of it was that, like, okay, that's one example. But like, how many games have you witnessed? How many like people have you seen playing this very genuinely complicated, has some places that are like don't have a clear answer? Like, people find like life finds a way. You know what I mean, man?
Yeah. So what would it be? It would be 60 games at every event, and I've done 5 events. So I've seen 300 games play, and I've that's not including games I've played myself, and I've been a TO for. So like, you know, we did the team event as well. So like, that's an only one. And do you know what was really great about that? And again, when you go to an event, it was the collaboration between me and the players. None of the players wanted their answer to be correct. They wanted a good answer. They wanted a good answer, and so it felt like. And then we discussed it, we chatted about it, and I think like that's super good of like the community. So yeah, like, but my kind of point is like, sure, the nitty gritty comes down. There's some elements where it gets a little bit like, oh, don't worry about it. But ultimately, it feels like a war game. And that my Marauder warband, which I'm a little bit gutted about because I don't really see the point in taking a Marauder warband at the minute or taking a Marauder brick, especially because you can't. Mainly because you can't have a level 4 wizard. There's a scuttlebutt that we might be getting a Marauder half of the Warriors of Chaos book that's going to be like, you can have a lord, you can have a wizard, that sort of stuff. So I'm quite excited about that because I really wanted
that Marauder half possibly be called, I don't know, Norska?
Ravening Hordes?
Could it be Norska?
Oh, that would be fun. Like, get some skinwolves and stuff in there. That would be interesting.
Skinwolf. I don't know why Skinwolf always makes me think of body parts, but I think it's awesome that it works. And also, recently, I've been on a bit of a Dan Carlin kick. I'm a hardcore history guy. And if you listen to Dan Carlin long enough, you'll notice that basically in every one of his 6-hour episodes, he references wargaming. And wargaming was like a big part of why Dan Carlin loves his military history so much. For those of you guys who don't know, Hardcore History, it's like one of the original podcasts ever. And basically goes deep into just military history for the most part and only military history. But he has like a background in wargaming. There was one episode he did where it was like a product placement for some video game. But he starts it off by talking about his like evolution in gaming and specifically wargaming. And it really just had me like thinking in my head while I was digging holes in my backyard about like what is the difference really between what we would think of as a tabletop war game, what is and a board game, because both, quite frankly, can be incredibly great experiences and like can be incredibly satisfying to play. Like, I love so many different board games. I only don't play them because I have, the bottom tier of the nerd iceberg, which is Warhammer, like at my fingertips at all times. So like, anyway, that war game versus, this is maybe a great thing for like a proper like blog essay, like wargaming, what makes it unique.
Oh, it's part of my,
what are we seeing?
It's part of my, I do have like, I feel like I've got a treatise on this, like a video essay, because I agree. And then obviously like warband, I like to say warband now versus skirmish games, because I think skirmish games feels derogatory. People don't like that term. Like it's used, I think, in the wrong term. But like the war games, what makes a war game, and what's nice is, I think, for the Warhammer / wargaming community is the wargaming, I'm going to just put that in quotation marks, versus 40k agency about board gaming. I'm going to put that in there as well because that's also in quotation marks because it's obviously not a board game. But that delineation, that difference is actually, it's really good that the old world has come back because it's quite timely. Like, I hope that inside Games Workshop, it's having this same conversation. They're having these same conversations that I'm having. How do you make it feel like? There's loads of bits I love about how AOS and also 40k are doing things. Like, I think just buying units as a box, and that's a unit that you play is actually quite nice. That level of granularity, I do think that that's quite nice. Does that mean there could be another version of it where you have points individually for models? Sure, right? I think that you need to cater to different markets. That's the other thing I think that they don't do. They don't invest enough money in catering to other markets. I mean, we just talked about that, right? We just said we should make a much simpler version so you can play with your kids. That's catering to a separate market so you can go towards a goal of doing something else together. Like, that should be something that they establish. But I think Old World, more than anything, and my sick-ass Marauder warband, which is the first thing I built, by the way. The first thing I ever built was this sick-ass Marauder warband, and I put it together. I put a photo on Twitter, and it got loads of love, and everyone like, this is amazing. And right now, it's just consigned to a box for history. Until I can make it work. There's no good element about it. The only thing I've got is doing some Marauder horsemen and Marauder foot characters with flails and just giving them marker corn and just sending them out to be just human lunatics, which I think would be sick.
Well, maybe you're right. Maybe we do get that potentially Norska, Army of Infamy, and or full-blown Arcane Journal. And you get to trot them out. Who knows? That would be a really good use for them.
Yeah.
And given, wargaming versus, I don't know what, I mean, it's hard to say that 40k and AOS aren't still war games. Again, like the learning curve and the required investment on those games is still ludicrous compared to a board game would be like, shut the fuck up, man. Like a board game, kiss my ass. I don't have to do shit when I play Monopoly or Risk or why I named the two most like brain dead games that exist. I don't know why. But like if like genuinely complex games, they're good to go out of the box. The effort you have to put in is learning rules, not putting an army together, making selections or anything like that. It's like you have to understand how the game functions and then you can go. So like the hobby element, maybe it's just like board game with more steps.
There's a really interesting, not to cut you off, but there's a really interesting kind of like, not paradigm shift, but like counterpoint with what we're seeing in modern popular gaming, as in like video gaming and even board gaming. So if anyone has played Nemesis is quite a complex board game, but is really, really popular the world over. Right. And similarly, you've also got something like Root, which is complex-ish, not super complex, but complex enough, but is very expandable. And both of those two game systems, I think what's interesting about their popularity is one could be played to a high degree of Root, a high degree of competitiveness and kind of like tactical nature. And Nemesis, on the other hand, is just a very complex board game, but is popular because of the complexity, which mirrors, in my opinion, what you see from Elden Ring, Baldur's Gate, right?
Good points.
That was incredibly popular.
I could not be fucking bothered to play Elden Ring, I'll tell you that. Like, I could just see, like, just getting past the fucking, like, literally walking down the street in Elden Ring, the skill cap would be the same as someone walking into my casita and seeing, like, what it takes to get an army on the table. Like, to me, it's the same thing. Right? Like it's just like completely gate capped by like the skill cap requirement.
But then the skill cap requirement is literally it's not the USP because it also looks good. There's some great story. It's very evocative. But it's a reason, people are really excited about it, right? Like and so like,
and it's a filter. So like it will also like seeing that game be as popular as it was interesting to me because it really is it's like a video game, right? Like it like requires Twitch skills, like understanding like button combinations and like from what I understood, it was hard to just mash your way through it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there was like an easy difficulty in it. But one of its calling cards was that it was hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the point you're making is that like simplicity doesn't necessarily go hand in hand with popularity. That is a form of design, but complexity and difficult tier is also a game design that can be popular. I see what you're saying. I see where you were going there, Rob. I think that's awesome.
Thank you to DJ Batman for finding my post about my sick-ass Marauder unit. Let's go.
Are we going to see it? Are we throwing it out?
It's on the screen for people, so it's a bit cut off. But it's made out of the absolutely fantastic Chaos Legionnaires kit, by the way. It's also got some Scions of the Flame and also the Tzeentch warband in there.
You somehow undersold this. They look really. Do you think? This looks really good. Yeah, this looks better than because I went and looked at a picture of the Scions of the Flame. And I was like, oh, they're cool. But there's like more than just those guys in here.
They look so good. And then I made a bunch of like, so I put these guys on 30s so they could be like Chaos Lords and level 4 wizards on foot.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I cannot wait. Like literally, I bought the Tzeentch box for the guy on the right-hand side of the screen for people. If you listen to the podcast, it's a guy with a big stone. So I was like, he is gonna be my level 4 wizard on foot. And then you get to the game and it's like, yeah, that sucks. Don't do that. like no!
I mean, level 4 wizard on foot, it could work. He could work. I mean, yeah. And
then the other guy on the right, who's in this like sick, like samurai style, like fucking armor with a crystal blade.
Flaming Corn Samurai, I think, is a good way to talk about him. Yeah.
And I was like, he's going to be my lord on foot. He's going to be a blender lord. And then you get the rules, and you're like, oh, I can't do that. But like. There's kind of a bit about the old world that's really, really not really, really fun because you can't do it, but you could do it. Like in my head, I pictured the ability to be able to build an on-foot Chaos Lord who I was like, that's the model I want to use because it looks so good. And like, I hope, well, no, I know it will, but I think we should all be really excited about the old world's ability to be a TTR. Maybe we should call them TTRPGs versus war games. Because
I think a TTRPG is just like a regular ass RPG that you play at the table. So it's already taken. But there's something. I think we're on to something. There is like a subgenre being created here, and it's interesting that I think that SDS in Games Workshop, so the specialist design studio from which Old World was created and spearheaded. They also make games like Horse Heresy, which is grounded in a rule set that is obviously much closer in like I guess game design heritage to what Old World is, which is an older version of 40K. I think it's based largely on 7th still, 7th edition 40K, and which was very contemporaneous with the last edition of Warhammer Fantasy. So before a lot of these sort of stylistic simplification changes came in. What I will say is that one thing that annoys me a little bit about Old World, and I'm hoping that we see it, we see this improved in whatever the next iteration is that having the complexity of the rules does not mean that we need to have a needlessly complex rule book. And by that, I mean just like the way it's laid out, the way it's like actually written, could have used a good copy edit. And it's written in that conversational style that like previous versions of Warhammer were written. And I get that. I get this part of the charm, but like I think they could do a better job with the complex rules feel even more complex because of how they're communicated. And I think maybe at the same time, while 40K and OS were simplifying, reducing the total amount of rules that were in the game, they also got better at writing literal rules. And I wonder if some of what I'm wondering if some of what they thought they were doing, which was simplifying, was actually just getting better at writing rules, and they sort of missed why people liked it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean,
that's such a good point. Like they got better at like saying, "Hey, this is when the effect happens. This is the trigger. These are the effects." I'm like, that's super fine. Like, and if you need to strip back so you can kind of like, I'm vibing on that. And what I'm saying about the Old World is, and this has gone on way longer than I intended, but it's fun chat.
It's a good chat.
It's a good chat. Is that I hope that the Old World really gives them that information to be like, do you know what? Also make it feel like, because the Old World does that really well. Like when you look at a unit card or a unit profile in the Old World, it is very visceral. The USRs, as well as its own special rules, as well as even armor values, like give you some like when you just see that a unit in 40K has a 3-up armor save, you just like it just has it, and you're like, why? Whereas like when you can equip them with like artifice armor, like then you're like, oh, it's got a 3-up armor save because it's like like it adds a story, and I feel like that's kind of the purpose of what this is. And I know lots of the people who listen to this were like, yeah, fucking obviously, Rob, but like
and the adventure of like finding like all that stuff. So like I remember first looking at these unit cards with the USRs, and again it was part of the mind lock for me at the beginning was I'd see this block of special rules at the bottom and be like, what the fuck does all this do? And I knew that a part of me knew, like the grown-up calm part and not the panicked freaked out part, was like one day you'll read this like a language, like you'll see the USR and you'll know the definition of it. It'll just be like a word that you know the meaning of, right?
Yeah.
And now that I think a lot like myself, I feel a lot. I still have to reference stuff, but like I feel like when I look at a unit card, it's not quite beautiful mind like numbers swirling by, but like those USRs are so descriptive, and you're right, they give a personality that is much more like just very deep, even though it's like just essentially a string of words. But once you know what those words mean, you get a real sense for what that unit can be or does, and how like what their vibe is, how they feel. And then the equipment, the ability to like tweak and change what they have and like go find that optimal loadout. Go find like things that like make them do whatever it is you want them to do as best as they can. Because maybe there are units that aren't optimal, sure, but you can also optimize suboptimal units and like give them the best go that they can possibly have. You can support them with other things like magic or items or characters or whatever. There's ways to try and get to the thing that you want, whatever that hook is that you have. There are ways to like try and make it work. And I've been seeing that a lot out there, and I've been seeing the love, and like that feels different to me than, do I like Storm Boys? Yes or no? I do. I get the box. I have Storm Boys. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like, we're preaching to the choir.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir, and I think it's one of those things where, like, the old world, and I'm really happy that the old world is back, because I think I wouldn't have, tell you a really fun story as well, because we seem to just be going nowhere with it, so I'll do it anyway, is I had my Tamra Khan book out on as I often do every single day the other day.
And Bible studies,
yeah, just that's all I read all the time. And I had it down,
the silky, just like the Bible, it just has that silky bookmark in it. Take it out. What am I reading today?
Yeah. And I went downstairs, and one of the people who was playing like a practice game downstairs was so in awe of the fact that they got to see a real copy of Tamra Khan. They were like, "Can I take photos of every page?" I'm like, "Sure, yeah." Like who cares? Because they were just excited because there's no good photos of this thing online, and I was like, I'm sure there must be, but
to do it right, you'd have to murder a copy. You'd have to kill a copy. You'd have to unbind it. Yep.
But the bit that made me smile, I guess, was that, like, I would love, again, talking about like the visceral nature of the rules and also like the units, I'd love to see the old world also go down that line. I haven't disliked anything that they've produced for the old world, but I think like those arcane journals, you can make them the size of a Black Book or a Tamra Khan. You can make them be £75 books, and before anyone jumps down my throat, if it's £75, you can still pirate it, so it's still free. Okay,
yeah,
right. But like, it's not outside of your purchase range because it's free, because that's what we do for rules in this hobby. But like, you know, they should be trying to create art, and I would say that like the old world feels like art. Like, or at least like that version of it, I would say. It's just quite nice. This has gone on too long, but there we go.
No, I don't think so. I think it's it like feels like a creative endeavor. And like, again, getting back to like, I think one of the reasons why I've been so open to this conversation is just because I was really triggered by those Dan Carlin conversations. And well worth a listen. I can't remember maybe I'll put in the comments what episode I listened to. Not that he needs a plug, but I guess it's a secret dream for me to interview Dan Carlin someday about wargaming. But the point, one of the things that he kept using in conversation was the creativity element, right? Like, so like that ability, like the hobby element. And like, it was interesting because those aren't things that you would necessarily think that he would prioritize, but those were big parts that captured his imagination, especially in contrast to when he moves to video games. So that's all pretty cool stuff. What a neat little philosophical ramble on the old square bass today. Hope everyone was into that one.
I honestly think that should just be its own video. Like, I'm happy to cut the video there if you watch this back on YouTube as a podcast, and just like, maybe this will tee us up for, actually, that sounds like a really good long depth chat in the future that we could do, but we'll be driven in that conversation by everything that you can bring up in the comments or, you know, in Discord and stuff, and we can maybe reevaluate this conversation, because we kind of naturally, organically turned into that, which was fun and I really enjoyed. But I think maybe if we were thinking about that, you know, in seriousness, there could be a lot of bullet points that we could discuss, and I'd love to have that discussion maybe a bit more in depth with a bunch of other people. I think a lot of people would be really up for this conversation, because I think, you know, I guess the real question is like, you know, if I was to make this a title, I guess the conversation would be, you know, is the old world the last war game that Games Workshop are making?
There's also like poor Horus Heresy's over there being like, well, what about me?
Well, yeah, also the Horus Heresy, I guess. Yeah, there you go.
Plastic Mechanicum. There you go. That's yeah, I think this is really to me, actually, it's more of a question too. And by the way, what I don't want this to be, this should not be a let's shit on modern 40K and AOS, because I think that like some elements of the old world community are very open to doing that. That's not the point. We play old world because we like it, and if you like those other games too, that's great. For me, it's actually kind of a question of what genre is actually being created in the other games. Because to me, this feels like what wargaming is, or at least what like the origin of wargaming is. And it actually kind of feels like AOS, specifically AOS, was a foray into something different, which also speaks to, I think, why a lot of people maybe had that like really I'm never going to do it reaction to it. It actually feels like like you said, almost like a hybrid, something different. And so like maybe that's part of the question, like defining like what is wargaminess. And I think that's even broader speaking than like even Warhammer. Like, is Warhammer more like would someone who loves Black Powder or like a historical game rule set, sit down and play Warhammer, be like, this is just an RPG with more steps, guys. You know, like, or you know, would they be like, this isn't a war game? This is actually, I think, a pretty meaty and cool topic to delve down into.
All right, sweet. Well, we'll definitely do that. If you are watching this back, then that's something we're going to approach in the future. And we're going to top this here because then we can just make a more focused video on the next subject, which I think will be fun. So thanks for listening to the Square Base Show. It's been appreciated. Loads of love.
Fun.
And thanks to Val. And let us know. Or get real gritty in the comments with this, because then we can screen cap stuff, we can put stuff into a chat, and then we can get real serious on this topic in the future, because I think that would be really fun to do. Thanks for listening. Square-based. Stay square blessed.